Vanuit de smaragd van Evenaar komt deze soort aan jullie rechterhand. Staat er onbekend zeer sociale soort te zijn.
Een leuk weetje is dus dat ze allemaal in groepjes leven, zodat ze een grotere overlevingskans hebben. Ze zijn erg territoriaal. Uit onze observatie blijkt dat het lijkt dat je om ze geeft wanneer je ze beledigt of aanvalt. Eén exemplaar zei, en ik citeer: "Je moet weten dat ik gemeen tegen je ben omdat je gevoelsmatig dicht bij me staat."
Intriguing.
That's all we
I'm
get,
being
though.
cruel to you because I'm close to you. And it's an Indonesian short film, but you hear the VO just then, the voiceover was Dutch. So
That's right.
interesting, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we just saw, and what you just saw rather, was the trailer for Sawo Matang, which will be having its world premiere at the prestigious TIFF, or Toronto International Film Festival.
Yes, the festival's 48th edition will be held from September the 7th to the 17th, presenting a global cinematic extravaganza featuring the best international films and industry events.
That's right. And this morning, we're very privileged and honored
Yes.
to have the director, Andrea Nirmala Wijayanto, along with the cast, or some of the cast here with us in the studio to talk about the film and the preparations leading up to the TIFF. So let us say good morning to Andrea Nirmala, Yesaya, Michelle, and Yasmin. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning.
Glad to have you.
Yes, we're so intrigued by the trailer. So you, as the director, Nirmala, so what is Sawo Matang about?
It's a long answer. Sawo Matang is a lot about a lot of things, but I think it's definitely talking about the racial tensions or the dichotomy between Chinese Indonesians and native Indonesians. But it's really through a teenager's perspective.
Right.
And we're kind of using an alternate version of Jakarta,
Right.
Where mysticism is more involved in our lives.
That's very interesting. And we also heard the Dutch language there. I mean,
Yeah.
why choose Dutch language to tell part of the story, or maybe the entire story?
No, it's not the entire story. I just use it as a structural storytelling device. So it only appears in specific moments and for specific reasons.
Yeah.
Because when I was making this film, one of the most important thing that I wanted to talk about was the dichotomy between the two races. And I find that I didn't really want to do a film where it was just representing or showing one side. Even though that representation is important, I wanted to show a different point of view, and I wanted to challenge the dichotomy instead. So I find that a lot of people, when they talk about the differences, they usually only root it back to the '98 riots.
Yes.
But it actually, it's not from there. Like, if you want to look at the whole situation, you have to go way, way back, like to the colonization era, because if you want to look at it, it's not, it's actually the Dutch's fault. Like, you can't really point fingers. I mean, like, you can't, like, between us, like between native and Chinese Indonesians, you can't really point fingers. If you want to point fingers, you point it to the Dutch.
Right.
Because even back then, like, they were the ones that gave us the separation, because the Dutch gave ABC power to the Chinese that made us like imbalanced, and then they treated the natives with like different set of rules. So that's how the imbalance came to be, and their strategy is to divide and conquer, right? And they did achieve that, like even until now, and that's why I really want to talk about that, because people talk about post-colonization effects, but a lot of people don't really have it in their minds that like the Dutch actually still has power, like to this day. It's just colonization, but in a different modern dress.
So why did you feel it was important to tell this particular story from a young person's perspective, especially?
I think because I made this story from a personal point of view. I started writing it because during the pandemic, I kind of had nightmares. My dreams always involved like me getting abandoned somewhere. Like sometimes it was like in the middle of an ocean, and I was like stranded alone in a boat. And it just made me realize that I actually still have a lot of trauma, like from my teenage self. Like when I was in high school, I grew up in a very Chinese Indonesian dominated environment. I know it's a very rare experience because I know like native Indonesians were not the minority, but in my specific growing up experience, I was the minority. And there's been a lot of, maybe hardships or like more complexities, I would say. So it stemmed from a very personal emotion, I guess, how I started writing the script, and then it became more political and trying to marry the two.
Right, and Anna Yasmin is pretty much playing you when you were young. Anna.
Trying to not market it.
Let's not do that narrative, but okay, I guess you can say so.
So what kind of journey does your character go through, Anna?
So I'm playing the character Nala, and she's like Nirmala said earlier, she's this high school girl who has friends, Chinese-Indonesian friends, and surrounded by the Chinese-Indonesian environment, being the, you could say, minority person in the community, and she also has a crush to the character that Mish plays, which is Kai. And but because of the mysticism that happened in the world building, sometimes people like always ask her to, or getting curious and interested about what are you actually doing about this whole thing, and can you do this, can you do that, and basically the story also explores that the journey or the relationship between Nala and Kai, and how in the end that they kind of like doing the rituals and stuff for the purposes, for their purposes.
Right, so what's the relationship and what do you guys go through and why do you guys do the ritual? I mean, it's just to give us a picture.
Without spoiling.
Without spoiling it. Well, basically, Nala really has a big crush on Kai, so I think she would just do anything. She would move mountains for him. And I don't know, how would you tell?
What about you? What about your character?
I play Kai, and Kai in the story, I guess, serves as a love interest for Nala.
Yes.
And he is also the person that somewhat brings conflict
Right.
to Nala's life,
Yes.
where Nala has found maybe somewhat of peace in this, how do you say it, in this
Relationship? Ritual?
in this community where she's the minority, but
Right.
Right, okay.
she's safe in it because
And that's her safe space, I guess. She found it in you.
Yeah. Not that sweet, I guess.
So you also mentioned about mysticism, or in Indonesian we call it pesugihan.
Okay.
You know, like or black magic or mysticism. I don't know exactly how to describe it. Why put that element in? What's the purpose of that element in telling the story?
Because, like I said, a lot of the racial tensions came from colonization, and I think when you talk about colonization, you can't talk about it without talking about capitalism as well.
Right.
And the purpose of specifically this mysticism that we have in Indonesia, like pesugihan, it's specifically like doing it to get money or like doing it to get riches, right? Like there's a specific objective.
Right.
So that's why it's imbued, because we're talking about an economy that's so bad right now that it's like we resorted to black magic. It's a satire, like it's supposed to be a commentary of how bad, or how challenging capitalism can be,
Right,
and how it's also brought on by colonization. But the specific ritual that we chose, it's actually one that was born during the Dutch era, and it was actually one that was born because of the disparity between the two races.
Really?
Yeah, so
How
that's
did
why.
it work? How did the ritual work?
Like was it born?
Yeah. And how was it practiced?
I'm not going to talk about the practice with the risk of butchering the authenticity. But
Right.
from what I read, or like from what I researched,
Yeah.
the ritual was born during the forced cultivation that we had during the Dutch era. So, and then a lot of the Chinese was given a lot of power to do business.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the natives were forced to do a lot of farming work. But there was a moment when some of the farmers are rich or they had an income. So people were suspicious. Like, you are a farmer, and during this era, like, how can you get rich so fast? So they were being accused of like doing this black magic. So the myth really started there.
Okay.
We're
Never heard
learning
that
a lot of
before.
history, right? I love this.
Yeah.
This is great.
So speaking of challenges,
Yes.
what were the challenges that you encountered in telling this story the way you wanted to tell it?
There was a couple. I think marrying the personal and the political is always hard because I do. There's a voice in filmmaking. I think like anyone can perfect the craft,
Yes.
but really what's harder is finding your voice and refining that voice. So, but at the same time, I don't think I can really put a story out there without having me some like connection to it or like have my heart in it. So it's really finding a balance between, okay, I have to kill, like we use the term like you have to kill some babies, like, you know, like even during the edit, like we had to cut out some of the scenes, like some of their like
Right.
cutesy, like more romance scenes, like I don't know, like modus, like I don't know what
modus, yeah,
the
yeah.
English word for modus is, but like we had
flirty,
yeah, the flirty
flirtation.
scenes, like we had to cut some of those out just so like no, like you have to like be more like it's a short, you know, like you have to just like be like bam, 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 like you can't really spend much time. Even though personally I love those scenes, but the politic side that's hard. And I guess another part was also. It's a co-production, so
With which countries?
with Canada and Indonesia because I am living in Canada, and this was my first short that I shot in Indonesia. Like my last two shorts, even though they were with Indonesian actors and speaking Indonesian, I shot them in Canada. So this was my first time like coming home to shoot a film, while also my first time coming home like ever since I first immigrated.
Wow.
So I think I took a lot, like too much on my plate, and now I'm like looking back at it, why did I do that? But yeah, that's one of the challenges.
We cannot wait, actually. And how did you get involved? And you know, usually an actor, some actors approach a certain project because they feel like something resonates with them, right? What about you, Anna? When you read the script, what did you feel, and why did you want to be part of this project?
Well, at first the script wasn't this how it is now, because it was more like sci-fi, and it had like, can I say the heart transplant part or something?
It's more like I don't know if you know the movie like Never Let Me Go.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very much close to that, like that level of sci-fi.
But then it developed until what we have now. But back then, I felt like I've always wanted to do sci-fi movie, be it short, be it feature film. But when I received the latest draft of the script, and then I felt really resonated because I also went to high school where I was the minority because I was with all of my friends. My ex-boyfriend were Chinese Indonesian, but then, but I felt what the character Nala felt, and the chemistry with her friends and her crush, because in school environment there were no racism, or they were more innocent, like, and we were just like having fun and be kids back then. So I felt like it was a comeback, or like a tribute to my old self, my teenage self as well.
Great, that's lovely.
Yeah, and it became a coming of age film, also combined with the magical realism, which is also great compared to the sci-fi. So I felt really happy to be a part of the project.
That's great. What about you, Mish? When you read the script, what did you feel? What did you think about?
Well, I guess I should start from casting.
Yes.
I immediately fell in love with the script I was given. And when we had online casting, and I don't know, I just felt like we were connected in that story. I remember you saying, finally someone understands the story.
That's true.
And I mean, as Kai,
What's your understanding of the story?
my understanding of the story. Okay. My understanding of the story is I talked about how the Reformation was somewhat switched up, somewhat modified, and where the roles are reversed in this world. And that's when you said, oh, someone understands the world, someone understands the story. And as Kai, he somewhat reminds me of my 17-year-old self.
Oh, in what way?
And I guess why I was so interested in this character being in this story is because you kind of take this character into circumstances and places that he's never been before. So it's very interesting to play him in this.
That's what John Lithgow also says, the
right.
actor. I
Another
think-
great actor, by the way.
Another great
Yeah.
actor. I mean, I think the excitement of being an actor is when you play someone that you think that you couldn't play before. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
You guys find it easier, more difficult to do something that was, I mean, what's the running time at the end? Of
21.
21, like compared to something longer or something that's continuing,
Well,
more challenging?
I think it's always been a challenge to convey stories and a character arc or character's journey when it comes to a short form of films, right, compared to the feature film or series. So, but I don't think I think for me, I didn't feel like we encountered such big challenges because Nir has been such a really great director to actually direct and develop the characters and the chemistry between us. Because the very first reading, we met as strangers, and then we just like, okay, who are these two people? Why do I like you? What should I like about you, actually? Especially given what happened in the film after.
Yeah.
But then, because this is also like Nir said, it's a personal story, being in a political one. We became vulnerable at one point, and then like we share our own personal stories, and because Mish is like the 17-year-old self, also my high school tales, and then I think I had a playlist combined with Nir's suggestions, and we had do the actors' psychosocial questions and everything. So in the short amount of time, we also already developed everything that we needed. So I hope
build the world.
to build the world and the characters as well.
Preparation
Be
is
in the
everything,
world.
that's what they say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in a few weeks' time, you guys will be headed off to Toronto. You'll be going back home to Toronto, and both of you will be there as well.
Another home.
This is home.
So many homes.
I know. So how can we access your film after you have your festival,
When will the general public?
yeah, hops?
I don't know. I mean, usually a festival run, it lasts like a year.
Yeah. Film festival this year, yeah.
Or if it's successful, more. But
Yes.
I don't know, hopefully someone or a sales agent picks it up and helps us sell it around platforms.
Yeah.
Amen.
If there's
Or
any sales
Jeff.
agents out
Or Jeff.
Yeah.
We really hope that our international or national festivals would pick it up, right? So
Yeah.
everyone in Indonesia could really just see it here.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I would
Offline.
love to watch Sawo Matang because
too.
it's about history. It's also about two human beings processing things. It's great. Thank you
Yes.
so much,
Thank you
Nirmala.
guys so much as well.
Thank you for
Congratulations
having
on
us.
this project.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, we're going to take another short break here, you guys, but please do stay with us. We've got sports and entertainment coming up next.